Imagine, there were so many people in this temple who saw the shooting. They must have been thinking that their turn would be next. This makes an incredible impression. And of course, I started thinking about my relatives. How did they spend their last moments? It made me feel sad to think how short life is for all of us.
The families want details of the day their relatives died. Ahmed Nubi was among the first officials to arrive after the massacre 5 years ago, and explains why the terrorists met so little resistance.
We took security for granted. In Luxor or Aswan, we didn't think that it could take place here because, you know, the historical sites in Luxor, it is in the mountains, and it is naturally protected. Second thing, it is a big village. We almost know each other in person. So we took it for granted. And yes, we have to take the responsibility for that.
The families had been told they'd meet Egyptian eyewitnesses to hear more details of what happened that day. But they are nowhere to be seen.
When I've spoke to others, including the Japanese, who only have just arrived really, since yesterday, that we all seem to feel that there is something being held back about the whole affair, and none of us are really sure what that can be.
That evening, the families try to mix with local Egyptians off the tourist track in Luxor's back street market.
So I think we'll swap. Good idea.
They sell copy watches here. The watches are copies, but I wouldn't have thought
Mohammed's got a brilliant one. Have you seen it?
John is curious to meet an Egyptian barber.
You taking this off?
No.
No.
I like it. I like it. There's no work in England in this style, yes?
Sorry?
Is this style no work in England?
This style?
Yes.
Not work in England?
Ah.
You might struggle with women.
I like it. But maybe my friend, I need to ask a small questions. Maybe that's nice for my face or no?
No, better without.
Without?
Without.
No. I like it. In Egypt, that's no for decoration, that's for my God.
For your God?
Yes.
Right. Why is this for your God then?
So many people in Egypt, you like this one, you go in the mosque, you go on...
yeah.
Yes.
Cairo, 700 kilometers north of Luxor. It is the seat of power and Egypt's Islamic center. Nearly a third of the population of the country live here. Hiroshi and Shoko Yamashita have come to try and get access to the official police report of the massacre. But first, they want to follow in the footsteps of Satko and Hidenori, who spent 3 days sightseeing in Cairo 5 years ago. In Luxor, Jean, John and Hans keep pressing for information about the terrorists.
Jean, this is Haggag, the bus driver. He's a hero. This is Jean from England, and this is Mr. Hans from Switzerland.
After many phone calls, they've been allowed to meet the bus driver, who was hijacked by the gunmen.
So the road to the Valley of the Kings and the road that leads to the hospital are in completely opposite directions.
Reliving the ordeal is obviously painful for Haggag.
He was driving by one arm because he was hit on his shoulder, and he was under such tremendous pressure with 6 people, gun, half gun, you know. So it was a very hard moment, yeah.
And to sustain that for a length of time.
Yeah.
You know,
more than
I mean,
2
how
hours,
long,
you know.
it's not doing it, it's just how long it lasted, isn't it, Hans? Yeah.
Hagag's heroic actions nearly cost him his life. He lay in a coma for 15 days before regaining consciousness.
You know, you can't blame all the Egyptians for what a few chose to do. They did it for their motivation and their reasons. If we're able to find out that why from someone in their group, and what were their thoughts, and what lay behind targeting the tourists, what they hope to gain from that, then okay, that's a bonus. Maybe we'll get that as well.
From the limited information available, the families know that the gunmen came from towns and villages around Kenna, 70 kilometres north of Luxor. They asked to be taken there to meet with relatives of the gunmen, but the authorities refuse. They say safety is the problem. But just a short drive from Luxor, Hans finds villages that are typical of the whole of Upper Egypt.
There are many people here, many children, they can't go to school. Father doesn't have money and it's impossible to make something.
To Hans, the contrast between his world and this is striking.
Would they have become murderers if they'd lived in my environment? I don't think so. They're victims of fanaticism, of indoctrination, of hate and despair.
Hans has learned that the gunmen were all young university students. But in these villages, even education brings limited options and no political voice. Al-Azhar Mosque in Cairo is the seat of Egypt's Islamic hierarchy. Shoko has wondered how the Luxor massacre could have been committed in the name of God.
I don't know what Islam teaches you over here and what they value most in their life. But I'm guessing that the most important thing for people here is their faith. Now that's very different from what I believe in myself. But how can some people value their religious faith and at the same time come up with such extreme ideas? I don't know, but this is something I've yet to find out.
One of Egypt's foremost sheikhs has agreed to meet her.
As a Muslim, how do you interpret the violence of extremists today?
The Holy Quran says that any relationship with other human beings, no matter what his faith, should be built on tolerance and acceptance. This violence was perpetrated by a sect that has left Islam. This kind of violence is prohibited in Islam, because Islam has always and will always condemn violence.
But violence in the name of Islam is not a new phenomenon in Egypt. By the 1990s, the Egyptian government was confronting a new, more extreme form of Islam. In Cairo, the Yamashtas managed to secure a meeting with a lawyer who became an unofficial spokesman for the Gamma al-Islamiyya. Many of his clients are young men from Upper Egypt who've been detained in a cycle of violence and repression. For 5 years before the Luxor attack, a secret war had been raging between the state and the Islamists. Small groups of militants attacked the government, soldiers and police, demanding the creation of an Islamic state. The Egyptian authorities fought back with a ruthless crackdown. By 1997, the jails were bulging with thousands of detainees, many from towns near Luxor.